Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 292, presented by PrizePicks and GameTime tickets. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again we are joined by the esteemed, the ever knowledgeable, the 3 hours ahead of me, Ty Anderson of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Ty, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Coming to you live from the 98.5 digital office right now. Did the radio today, and yeah, we are 3 hours ahead of you. It's crazy. You've missed a lot out here in Boston so far. It's still a day.
Still bad? Okay.
Yeah, they're still bad. They're not good. Everyone's still angry about pretty much everything. So it's been a nice little day here. Nice little Saturday. Might go to Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if I have time.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Yes, it is. It is a nice 75 degrees here. So I'm sorry to twist the knife. As you can see, the sun behind me, it looks like I'm kind of like Obi-Wan when he shows up in Hoth. If you want to see the light illuminated behind me, that is just the sunlight. But I'm doing well. I will no longer antagonize people who are thawing out their cars. Or I don't even know what the weather is in Boston, but I can imagine it's not as pleasant as it is here. So,
well, I pumped gas and my hand got numb. So there's that.
Oh, it's not great. Okay, yeah, that's not great. So I digress. Ty, enough talking about the weather. Let's get to more pressing matters, which is the Bruins are sucking once again. They've lost 2 in a row. They lose to the Capitals on Tuesday, a game where they generated a lot of quality looks, actually, especially at 5-on-5 play. Couldn't get that tying goal past Thompson with Washington, and then started off really strong against the Rangers, a team that is bad. Straight up bad team in free fall. Control play, let the Rangers get back into it, and then Jonathan Quick decides to go sicko mode, has a couple of great saves, but I think regardless of how Quick played or Thompson or anything, I think you're once again seeing just the lack of finishing ability is what's killing this team right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Right, the Rangers win that game. It was only their 4th win in their last 19 games, I believe. The worst record in hockey over that span, which is funny because the Buffalo Sabres lost 13 games in a row, I think, at one point, and it's still not as bad as what the Rangers have been like these last month and a half or so. Yeah, it's not a great loss, right? And I think what's especially frustrating about that loss to the Rangers is that I thought the Bruins started really well. I thought it was a really good start. I had them down for at least 2 really good scoring chances and the Oliver Wahlstrom post shot. You don't get anything, and then you give up 2 goals in 3 minutes and 7 seconds, and then we're realists here, and we watch the team and we go, oh, they got to score 3 goals now to win the game. That's not easy for them, right? And it wasn't. They only got 1. I think structurally you liked what they did, yeah, but you got to score goals to win. And this team, as we know, I mean, they just have to work so freaking hard for their goals that it's really like and when the power play is as bad as it's been, right? Like there's really no way, like you don't have like an easy button to score goals right now. You just don't. And I think that for all the problems that a team like the Rangers have, and they have a ton, don't get me wrong, like they have quick strike ability, whereas the Bruins, it feels like it's not there consistently enough. It's there against really bad goaltenders, like the guy we saw in Columbus last week in Boston. But like it's really hard for this team to score 3 goals consistently, it feels like.
Yeah, no, and I think you look at it's another example of this team where I think you're feeling good about their game, and then they take a step back where it's you look at. They win against the Capitals. They beat Columbus, what have you. They had that crappy loss in between against Columbus, but play the Caps on the road and like they lose 3-1. It's technically a 2-1 game for most of it, and like that's one that sucks because they had a lot of quality changes and couldn't finish. But I thought that was really good team, competitive effort. Caps blocked like 29 shots, like a tough loss to a very good team. And like, I think, you can take some positives out.
Most blocks against the Bruins this year ties the game against Philly that they lost. 28 blocks they were credited with. So yeah, to your point, like, they had to work for it, but still, like it's sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, and like I think the Bruins had 13 high danger looks at 5-on-5, which I think was their third highest total. Like again, like that's when it sucks you lose, it sucks you don't get a point out of it. But yeah, I think you can take some positives out of that, just the way they're playing and competing, competitive game, right? To lose to the Rangers, where that's a team in free fall, that you especially look at what's ahead on the schedule in January and the amount of really daunting matchups, starting with tonight against Toronto with Austin Matthews back in the lineup. That's just one where you look at that, you look at like the two losses to Columbus earlier this year, where like the margins are so slim for this team, whether it's on the ice, whether in the standings. Like 6 points would go a long way in terms of where this team is at. And it's just another example of you feel good about this team, you feel good they're heading in the right direction, and like the product has improved from where it's been in November, right? Like they're at least getting shots on goal, they're generating looks. But man, like the inability to kind of get the job done or cash in on these chances, it's frustrating. And it's, it sucks because like I thought Swayman had a pretty good game. The second goal is pretty one you'd probably like to have back, but I'm not putting him in a 2-1 game as the guy you lost, the reason why you lost it. But when you have like mistakes with like Lori, with like odd man rushes, like you can't have those, especially if the margin for error you have where you can't make a mistake. And that's crappy all around, right? Like you've got a team that they can't really take risks. They can't have any lapses because, as you said, when another team goes up 2-3 goals, we're all like, all right, something's going to have to be pretty wacky in this game for the Bruins to get the necessary scoring to get going. Because now we're at a point with this team where if they score 2 power play goals in a game, it's an outlier, right? Like it's
right.
The cheat codes, the easy avenues to offense just have not been there this year.
Yeah, and I think on Swayman, yeah, not a great start for him. He gives up 2 goals on the first 7 shots he faces, but then he makes 20 straight saves, and so I think he did his part. And if we're gonna spend the whole year complaining about the goaltender when the offense, is very formulaic, it's very hit or miss, it's honestly, like the way this team rides waves in a negative way is very unique. Like they give up a goal, and the next thing you know, like they don't know how to play hockey for 5 minutes, and they give up another or whatever. And like, yeah, like to your point about Lowry, like the spot sucks for him because he's a guy that you have to rely on to create offense because of what we've talked about with their lack of pop up front. It's got to come from the back end, and there's no Hampus Lindholm right now, so it's Zadorov, Lowry, and Wotherspoon. Like Lowry is the only guy on that side that they're going to ask to create offense entirely. So when he tries to activate and he tries to make plays happen, and it's a 2-on-1 the other way, it's like that sucks. And you want to get that out of his game, but also like he needs to do that because you have such little punch up front right now. And so it's the worst spot to be in, right? Like you're in that. It's like when a quarterback pump fakes a 4th time and you're like, nope, gotta get rid of the ball, dude. It's the same kind of concept. It's like you're watching it and you're like, he can't do that, but he's got to find the right. He's got to still try. He's still going to try to find the avenue for offense, and that part of it is just so frustrating, I think, for the Bruins. And he's not alone in that regard. Like you give, they're giving a lot of offensive run to guys to try to get them going. Like Trent Frederick, Oliver Wahlstrom, Justin Brazeau, like those guys, like you got to get them in the offensive zone because you got to get their game trending in the right direction, but they're not producing right now, and that part's frustrating. I hated the third period that we got from Oliver Wahlstrom and that third line. He gets over the attacking zone and immediately makes a drop back pass to nobody. And then there goes possession. It's like, okay, there's that. They had 2 sequences with under 5 minutes left, I want to say, or 5.5 minutes left in the game, where they gain the zone and immediately lose the puck. And then it's back to tagging up. It's like, all right, like, and so they just have such little pop, it feels like, below their top line right now, whatever that top line is, whether it's Coyle to the right of Lindholm and Marchand or Pasternak to the right of Lindholm and Marchand. It's like, it's just, they are so starved, it feels like, offensively on a consistent basis that it's really hard to blame anything besides the offense right now.
Yeah, no, very, very frustrating in terms of the way this team is going. And I think the number of stagnant players or just outright passengers that are all across the lineup right now. We'll talk a little bit about ways to potentially fix things with this Bruins team. But before we do that, take a quick break, hear from our good friends over at PrizePicks. It's playoff time, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last 2 weeks of football action with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. You just need to pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash as you run your game all season long on America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. Don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. PrizePicks also invented the Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks, especially during football season. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Jared Goff, more than 230 passing yards, and Saquon Barkley for more than 1 touchdown. It's really that easy. So cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Shout out once again to our good friends over at PrizePicks. Ty, I feel like when you look at ways to get this offense going, one thing that has routinely been brought up is where are the young guys? I tweeted something about it after the Rangers game of it feels like now's the time to bring up some sort of skill, some sort of scoring punch, some urgency with younger players who want to make earn a spot in the lineup. We're not getting it on Saturday against Toronto, but man, it feels like something's got to give at some point, right? Whether it's Patra, Lysell, Markulov, anyone, right? Because it does feel like there needs to be some new blood, especially further down in the lineup to get something going here.
Yeah, first I want to ask you, what did you think of Fabian Lysell's debut?
I thought it was pretty promising. I don't know why they didn't play him that much in the third period. I look at, again, is it going to be perfect with him? No, but I look at what he did on the opening goal from Brazeau as an example of like using your speed to beat 2 guys to the puck. And I think the knock against Lysell is like, oh, he's not physical. He's a guy that's going to pull up, takes the puck down to the behind the net into high danger ice and makes a play down there. If he's skating and using that ability, driving to the net, hovering around grid A ice and creating chances, I'll take that over, as you said, Wahlstrom skating, doing a drop pass into no man's land. I'd rather have guys that are playing with that speed, that pace, that urgency. Same with a guy like Patra, who's trying to make something happen. Because, I'm not saying these guys are mailing it in or they're not trying, but you're getting way too many passengers in that part of the lineup, and it's killing this team in terms of just the lack of 5-on-5 scoring from that part of the depth chart.
Yeah, listen, it's easy right now to pick on guys like Trent Frederick and Oliver Wahlstrom, and I fully acknowledge that. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that they've had 2 really good games in a row, and I know people online have, and yeah, sure, because the ceiling is so low with these guys that just not getting caved in is like, well, that's a good game. It's like, well, no, it could be better. And you're struggling to score goals right now. You got to do something more than just control possession. The other night, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but the other night they control the shot attempts. Wahlstrom, Frederick, and Brazeau. I think it was 12-6, I want to say, or 12-5, something like that. They got outshot on the ice. That shouldn't happen. The puck's got to get on goal, guys. You got 2 guys there, Brazeau and Frederick, that are really good at getting to the front of the net. So get to the front of the net, bang away, get some actual shots on goal. And I think that, yeah, to your point, I'm all in on seeing the kids. I want to, because I don't think this team is a true cup contender. We talked a little bit about this last week. I just think that you have to sort of make calls that can accelerate your own franchise's timeline. And I know that Don Sweeney has used the term overbaked before about his prospects and being completely ready, but I mean, at a certain point, if you have a season and a team that is so obviously flawed, like this Bruins team is, and you look at the lineup right now, this team still doesn't know who their second line right wing is. They still don't know who their top line left wing is. Right now, it's Morgan Geekie, but we'll see. Trent Frederick's playing center right now, which has never been his strongest position in terms of getting the most out of his game. Okay, so I feel like Dale Doback in Step Brothers, or I'm sorry, Mr. Doback in Step Brothers, where he's like,
Yes.
I see a drummer and I see a singer. It's like, I see a center prospect, a left winger, and a right winger. It's like, what are we doing here? And if these guys are not in your future plans, and I'm talking about your NHL roster, Frederick's a pending UFA, Geekie's a pending RFA, Wahlstrom is a waiver pickup who is a pending RFA, then get them out of here and bring in guys that we think can be part of the future. I feel like that's where this team has to be right now. That we are no longer in the one more for Bergeron, one more for Chara, one more for Krejci era. We are in a transitional phase. I think, watching and observing this Bruins team, and I feel like the Bruins are the ones that are denying that right now. But it's clear as day in front of our faces that we are watching a transitional phase. So embrace it. Develop guys. Get them some real minutes. To your point about Lysell, I hated last week. They're up 4-0. Why isn't he playing in the third period?
Let him play.
That is the perfect time to get him some run here. And if he fails, and if they give up a goal, okay, you still got 3 more goals of a cushion there. Like, that's a perfect time to get him some minutes. And so when it comes to the call-up itself, I'm curious what you think about this. Like, because I asked Bob Beers about this on the radio this morning. Why him? Was this as simple as his family was in town, so it's rewarding him, letting them see an NHL game? Or was it potentially a trade? Maybe somebody likes him and wants to see him in the NHL. And is that a possibility as well with a guy like Lysell?
Yeah. And, I mean, I can't tell you as to why it was just one game. Like, and would suck if it is just not suck in terms of like, oh man, like they only did it for him. I'm glad his family was in town, was able to see it. But like, there's also more priorities than just that. Like, maybe because he's a really talented prospect that you haven't given a run up at the NHL level. And I agree. Like, we'll talk about this more later on of like where our stance is on this team for this season. But if this is a year where it ends up being like you either miss the playoffs outright, which would suck, or you're one and done and you get, punched in the mouth by the Capitals or the Panthers in the first round, if you're a wild card team, something like that. If you're having one of these years where there's not a whole lot of immediate positive to build off of, why not find some sort of clarity? Like, that's what I always mention when I talk about every year when we get to September of guys that are going to make a push for the roster, of like why the Bruins need to see what you have in these guys. Why not figure out like now, like at this point by the end of the year, whether Lysell is a guy worth keeping or whether he's spare parts and you can trade him as part of a package or something? Why don't you figure out like what you're going to do with Frederick now and whether he's a guy you keep or you move on from? Poitras had a rough start to the year, as expected, coming off of major shoulder surgery. Still needs to put on some weight. Playing at a high level down in Providence. Is he a guy that going into next year, we see how he plays down the stretch this season and are like, this could be a guy that is a 2C in due time, and we can project that out of the way he's playing. We don't know because he's lighting up down in Providence, getting cross-checked in the back. Like, let's see it up here. Like, and again, the same thing. Like, why not call up a guy like Poitras? I think Poitras is probably the safer example of all these guys to call up. Why not call him up where he's a guy that has poise with the puck, makes plays, can separate from guys. And if you put him with like Brazo and Frederick and be like, hey guys, just go to the net front. And like Poitras is going to find you. If that gets Poitras going, if it leads to scoring, if it gets Frederick going and either you get him at least pulling on the rope or you bump up his trade value, like feels like a win-win. That's why it's so puzzling as to both in terms of the immediate short term of getting production, getting, your team's shit in order this year, plus figure out what you have for the future. It's why it's puzzling that it just hasn't happened yet when you're getting the same old song and dance with the current roster you have. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to devote significant resources and minutes to guys that are not here beyond this season, like that's just malpractice as an organization. Especially, we're going to do the same song and dance, barring them, not being traded or deciding that they don't want to play in North America anymore or in your organization anymore. In the case of a guy like Merkulov, who could go to the KHL, he's from there, obviously, and I know there are teams over there that would like to bring him in. Like, it's just a waste of time that if we're gonna let this season fall by the wayside, a team where they're obviously, like I said, they're obviously flawed and they have ample opportunity and potential to get these guys minutes. If you're not going to do that, and then in the summertime, you're going to go, well, we're expecting a push from them. It's like, no, stop with this nonsense. Like it'd be great if they could go from, not have to go from 0 to 60. If you can get them up to 20, 30, 40, and then go to 60, it's just easier. That part is frustrating to me because I do think, like, you're in the entertainment business, and prospects and future hope and all optimism, that's entertaining. Watching that is entertaining. And if you're devoting resources, this was a problem that the Bruins made in the early years under Don Sweeney. They were bringing in these kind of like patchwork veteran guys or tweeners that you knew weren't going to be here for the long haul. And then the fans were like, I don't really care about this because I know that this isn't what we're aiming for. Right. I just, like, that part's frustrating. And I think, like, it's one game. I understand that. He played 12 and a half minutes. When they announced Fabian Lysell, like, it got a pop from the crowd. I think this fan base is dying for some electricity. And the guys that we're talking about, they have it. They might not be perfect. They might not play a 200-foot game, but I think that that's something that they have to consider as well, the entertainment of your product and developing that and giving fans something to kind of latch onto and say, this is our future. We're ranked 31st and 30th in all these prospect rankings, but look at this kid. He's actually pretty good. I like what we have here. Like, you got to give him something like that, I think, at a certain point.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, I think something's got to give there. And if you Bruins fans want to eventually catch Fabian Lysell and Matt Botcher at a game, I don't know if it's going to be this year. It might be with another team. Who the hell knows when it's going to happen? But when it eventually does go down and these guys are on the ice, you got to go with game time tickets. The holiday season has come and gone, but rejoice, sports fans, because the NFL playoffs are finally here. And yes, the 2024 Patriots aren't going to be playing in the playoffs, unfortunately. Hasn't really gone according to plan, I would say. But if you want to grab seats to any other NFL playoff game this winter, or even catch a Bruins or Celtics game at the Garden, you got to go with game time tickets. There's nothing better than going to an NFL playoff game at Gillette Stadium in years past. Yeah, it's a little chilly, but the crowd, the anticipation, a few beers in the parking lot, there's nothing better. I was able to be in the stands for New England's 2017 AFC Championship game against the Steelers, the one where Martellus Bennett was dancing with the cheerleaders afterwards, and it was electric. So if you guys want to go to an NFL stadium in January, game time tickets will get you the best seats at the best prices to get you to the game. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NFL, NBA, and NHL tickets. The Patriots might be done, but want to catch the Bruins against the Avalanche in January? How about the Celtics against Ime Udoka and the Rockets? Game Time Tickets has you covered. Game Time Tickets app makes it easy to sort through which specific game, concert, or other event you want to attend and shows you the best spots available to take in the action. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour returns guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Shout out once again to Game Time. Ty, in terms of positives from the last couple of days, Mark Kastelic signs a 3-year contract extension for a little over $1.5 million. I think you look at this team and guys who have underachieved, I wouldn't put Mark Kastelic in that category. He's produced. He's playing with a lot of pace, physicality, which I think is something that was not viewed as being like a consistent part of his game, but he certainly answered the bell in that regard. I think in terms of keeping around guys you want to build around, pretty good deal for the Bruins and for Mark Kastelic to get some security here with his new team.
Yeah, I love this. I love this deal for the Bruins. 1.5 and change. If the cap rises the way that we think it's going to rise, it's at its height going to account for about 1.5% less actually of the cap ceiling of the salary cap ceiling. So that's always a good move. Like that's not a big deal. Where you get bogged down is when you're paying $5 million for third liners. Like that's the true sort of doomsday there, I think, for teams that are looking for help. And I think what I like about Kastelic is that you mentioned it, the pace, the energy, the effort is never in question. A guy who brings it every night. And I don't know if it's just because like he's got a beard. He's only 25. I thought he was like 29 for some reason.
Yeah.
Like he's a young dude. And so you're buying in at a pretty good age in terms of getting his best, right? Like being 25 years old, he's already matched his career high in points in about 30 fewer games this year. And so there's some more to be discovered there, but you know what you're getting, right? You know, you're getting a guy who can win some faceoffs, a guy who hits, who can fight. And really, I think it's become sort of the motor of that fourth line, which I would argue, Connor, they have been looking for since Sean Kuraly left. Like since Sean Kuraly left, like they haven't had that guy who it's like, you know what you're getting every night. He's got wheels. He can hit. He can even pop in a few goals. Like he's kind of, I think, taken up that role. And it's one the Bruins have tried filling for a long time. Like think about it. They got Garnett Hathaway and he just wasn't Garnett Hathaway here for whatever reason. Like it was
for some weird reason.
He just
and then anytime he plays the Bruins, he's just extra angry. Makes no sense.
I think they told him not to be, and that's why he's extra angry now. He's like, "Let me be me. I'm a dick. Let me be me."
Yes.
They brought in Pat Maroon. They brought in AJ Greer. Like they have tried to kind of get like that. Okay, who's like a guy who can hit, who can skate well, and can change the game, drop the hat, right? Like, and I think Kastelic, they found one, and good on them for identifying that guy, A, in the trade talks, and B, enough to say, we got to re-sign him now before the summer where he could make $2.5 million if you keep scoring like this. Like the way the cap is going, like you're going to see some fourth line guys that are of his ilk probably make good money. And so I think being proactive with him, it's a good move. So I liked it from that regard, from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially when you look at, I think, what his value could be. You kind of hit on it. If you hit on the market, like that's a guy you look at his size. I'm sure you can look at his underlying numbers of like his skating ability, his production, which has been solid. And like, you know, a team also going to be like, oh, this guy's tired to lead in penalty minutes. Like, this is what we need. Like, that's a guy that would, I think, easily get over $2 million per year if he hit free agency. So good move for the Bruins in a year where there's not been a lot of positives, especially with guys, newcomers or guys fitting in and driving play. A step in the right direction, not a foundational piece, but a guy that I think you can plug in the next 3 years and be happy with what you get out of him night in and night out, which can go a long way on a fourth line. So good move for the Bruins. Good for Kastelic to get the bag. Ty, before we wrap this up, real quick.
Sorry,
yes.
I want to ask you about this. Like, so Trent Frederick, what would we say that his UFA value would be on a market? Like, would you say like $4 million? Would you say,
I would say probably 4 right now. Like it probably was going to be higher going. I thought he was going to get like 5 off of. I think teams covet so much of how unique his skill set is, and every team going into this year could be like, oh, this guy could pot 20 goals for us and be a pain in the ass and be physical. And like they look at his underlying numbers, like his defensive numbers before this year were great. Like he was on a lot of shutdown groups, like not flashy, but he had that also, I think, knack of like making the smart, simple plays that I think you said this, like Frederick, when he's with other players before, always made his line mates better. Has not been the case this year, but he's a guy whose value also, I think, isn't just tied into the hope of being a 15, 20 goal scorer or the physicality. Like he's got underlying things I think a lot of teams really covet. So I think going into this year, I was going to be like, some team's going to give him like $5 million on the open market. I don't see that being the case now, but I also don't think he's playing himself into a $2.5 million deal. At least I think there's still some team that looks at that skill set and is like, we can fix him.
Right. No, exactly.
So,
and so why I asked that is because he's making 2.3 right now. I think 4 million thereabouts is kind of where he is, maybe 3.75. So if you have Kastelic at 1.5 and you have a pending UFA and Justin Brazeau, could you, in theory, replace the aggregate or replace Frederick in the aggregate with Brazeau and Kastelic? I wonder if that's kind of their thinking here. So maybe internally, now that Kastelic has been re-signed for 1.5, do they look at Brazeau and go, if we can ink him at 1.75 or 1.5, maybe even 2, okay, now we got 2 guys for $3.5 million or there, maybe even less, right? Like, why do we got to keep this guy at 4 million? Like, I know he's a first round pick. Like, so I wonder if there's like an order of operations here, because I do find it telling, Connor, that in October, Don Sweeney told us, yeah, we're talking with Trent Frederick. Okay, well, it's now January and there's no deal in place. And if we follow the trends here, he said this about Jake DeBrusk last year. Didn't happen. He said it about Torrey Krug back in 2019 and 20, whatever that was. Didn't happen. Like, so is there an element here of them saying, okay, we've taken care of the fighting and the center. Okay, if we can ink the guy that scores his goals on the net front, like we've replaced Frederick. We don't need to pay him because we've replaced him right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is something you have to view as being, and it's as you said earlier, in terms of where you run into cap issues, it's when you give guys in your bottom 6, your third line guys, 4 million, 5 million plus. And if all of a sudden you do have Kastelic you can lock in for the next 3 years at his money, which is great, and a guy like Brazeau, who's like not perfect, but like can conceivably be a 15, 20 goal guy if he's put in the right spot. Like you see what he can do out there. It's kind of like Nick Ritchie, right? Like where if that guy can get those kind of goals, like I noticed kind of Brazeau more than I noticed Ritchie when he was here. And like Ritchie was not going to cost you 1.752 like Brazeau is going to, I imagine, would be on his new deal. And like, again, he's not a complete player. The skating is still not there, but you see the production, you see how good he is around the net front, like the passing, recovering pucks. Like he can be a useful player, especially at that price point. So I can see it be the case where if those are 2 guys that you sign that are part of your mix further down the lineup, like that's the thing is like Brazeau top 6, not a fan of that. I don't think that's ideal, but if he can be a guy that if he's with a Patra or someone like that, and he just does his job, he's going to generate a lot of high danger looks. He's going to generate a lot of quality chances. And he might be a guy that year in and year out, like his best years are like 21 goals and like 15 assists. That's totally fine. They'll take the 21 goals, especially on a team like this that cannot score. So I wouldn't hate that if that's kind of your pivot. You either letting him walk, Frederick, or you're moving him for something. Because I still feel like a team can look at him even now and be like, now we could use this guy. You know, the value is probably not going to be what it was going into this year, but I think he still could be a pretty valuable trade chip, whether it's draft capital, whether it's swapping him and something else for a more offensive forward kind of player or something like that. I do think that feels like something's got to give there with a guy like Frederick.
And so I think that this is worth noting. And obviously you mentioned it. The role is different, right? Justin Brazeau has played a lot of top 6 minutes this season. But if we go back to February 19th, 2024, that was the day that Brazeau made his NHL debut. 57 games, 14 goals, 24 points. Over that same span, Trent Frederick, 67 games played. So 10 more games played, 8 goals, 20 points. Minus 17, by the way. Trent Frederick is over that span. And we could point to there's a stat here that's telling. It's the fact that Brazeau is shooting 15.6%, whereas Frederick is shooting 8%. However, Brazeau is always going to have a high shooting percentage because he shoots from the front of the net. Like that's where he gets the majority of his chances. So I feel like he's going to have a higher percentage kind of naturally. But keep in mind too that over the same span, again, Frederick is averaging 70 plus more seconds of time on ice per game than Brazeau. So it's you look at that and you go, okay, if they're close in age, but one guy's been more productive since making the show, it's kind of hard to say, okay, I don't want to pay that guy, but I definitely want to pay this guy top dollar, even though he's been outperformed by the cheaper option over that same span. So it's really hard because I think this podcast and I don't want to speak for you entirely, but I think we're largely pro Trent Frederick. We've seen his best. We've seen the way he can impact the game. You mentioned the defensive metrics. He's made lines better. He's been bad now for, I would say, the second half of the year last year and all of this year. He hasn't been good enough, and he hasn't taken that next step. And if he is plateauing here, sell high. And you know what I wonder, Connor, deep down? I wonder if they haven't scratched him because they don't want to torpedo his potential trade
hurt the value. I think that goes a long way, right? Of like, that's like kind of the shot across the bow, or all of a sudden, you know, I'm sure, you know, GM's got like a big whiteboard of all their guys they're looking at. And like when someone gets healthy scratched or something, they go, oh, what the hell's going on there? Like we haven't checked in on that guy in months. Like we just know he's a good player that has a skill set we like. It's kind of like Kreider, right? Or like Kreider's like had an underwhelming year, gets healthy scratch. Like, oh, what the hell's going on over there? Same thing with Frederick. It's like Frederick, you scratch him, all of a sudden, you know, other GMs put on their glasses and go, oh God, he hasn't scored in 12 games. Oh God, before that was 9 games. Like, oh, holy what's going on here? And so I do think that has to be part of it, right? Where I think you look at guys that could be trade chips for this team, whether it's moving them for draft capital, again, like swapping him for a player that can maybe give you more offense at the risk of not being as physical, what have you. Like we won't dive into, you know, trade candidates or whatever, but I think when you look at a guy that the Bruins could move on from that aren't you know, a key piece of this current team, or a guy that isn't maybe part of their long-term plans looking at the contract situation. Yeah, I can see that. I think that's the biggest reason why he hasn't been scratched yet, is they don't want to put that label on him as being a guy that is just not doing nearly enough that is going to be sitting on a game. Even though, honestly, there's been quite a few games where I'm like, how is he not the guy that's the odd man out? But I think that's got to be the main reason why.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense at this point. Like, and I understand wanting to let him play through it and try to get him going, because we've seen it before. Like when he can get going, he can be kind of a freight train. It's just, there's nothing right now that he's doing that makes you feel confident that it's going to happen. And you know, he talked this week before they left town, talking about the trade rumors and stuff, basically saying like he's not worried about it and he's not thinking about his contract and all that. But like at a certain point, it you do think about it. You are a human being.
Does.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, how could you not, right? Like, listen, I've had a contract once in my life, and when it was the final 2 months of that contract, I was panicked. I was like, are they going to keep me, or am I getting what's happening here? So, you know, that was a very low stakes kind of contract, in my opinion. I mean, it was my career. So, but you feel the pressure. I don't think I think it's impossible not to, especially when you're not playing well. But I do think that he is the most curious case that the Bruins have right now. Like, you know, we're going to talk about buying and selling and what they can and can't do. But like, I think he's the central sort of piece to all of that, in my opinion. And right now, it's just like, I don't know what direction they go in. I have absolutely no idea where they go with him right now.
Yeah, we will see how it pans out for Trent Frederick and the Bruins. Definitely something that couldn't tell you what exactly is going to be the case once we get to early March and the trade deadline goes down. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can hear me on 98.5 The Sports Hub every Saturday morning on the hockey show, 9 to 11 a.m. Today's show was great. We had a lot of callers. I had to play hurt. I had to play a little under the weather. Not a good night's sleep.
Admirable.
Voice a little scratchy, nose a little stuffy, but you got to play through. Take some smelling salts. Good to go. So you can hear me there on their website too, 985sportshub.com. You can also find me on social media at _Ty Anderson. Also on Blue Sky, Ty-Anderson. I got to get better about using that. I'm sorry that I'm not good at it. I'm trying. Social media is a nightmare for me. So you can find me on there. How about yourself?
Yes, you can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have covered every step of the way this Bruins season with recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. You can also find me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, at Conor Ryan _93. This was episode 292 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.